All right, here we are. This is Jay Brown Yoga Talks podcast. My name is Jay Brown. Who are you? Does this happen to be the first time you've ever listened to this show? If so, welcome. Nice to meet you. Everyone else, what's up? How are we doing? Actually, don't answer that. Don't answer that. In a way, asking someone how they are or how they're feeling right now without being able to look them in the eye or just be in the same room with them and get a general vibe about whether or not that question is going to bring up some stuff that we're not prepared to deal with right now. It's a question that has become almost a habit of mine. And I always mean it when I ask someone, how are you? I try not to ask that as a frivolous, superficial inquiry, but as a genuine question from one person to another. And I've always liked to have that conversation with anyone who's willing to have it with me. But nowadays, if you're just, only going to be able to stand there for 2 minutes with each other, or you're not really in a position or knowing each other well enough to have the trust to be vulnerable together, then the question just is feeling awkward. It doesn't even feel like a nicety or a formality anymore. It feels like a test or something. So you don't have to tell me. Don't tell me how you're doing. I do hope that you're feeling okay. I hope that life feels less dystopian to you. Actually, let me correct that. It's not life. Life is a wondrous phenomena that we are all experiencing together. It's a miracle. So I'm not worried about that. There's nothing dystopian about life. I guess it is our societal mores that are feeling dystopian to me in a lot of ways. As I was saying last week, being able to oscillate between feeling a sense of life's wonder and our interconnectedness with it and all the seeming things that are happening in our global politics and socioeconomics, all of that, injustice and horror and fear, that continues to be the challenge of the day, if you ask me. So I hope that you're managing it. And I am very grateful to you. I appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. Also, my guest today is Tatjana Mesar, and we are basically going to be working through the situation some together. I met Tatjana 2 years ago now. We spent a little bit of time together in Berlin 2 months before the pandemic hit. And so we had this conversation to touch base on what's been happening since and how we are managing our yoga teaching in the current circumstances. So there's actually quite a bit of very useful information to all of my fellow teachers out there, I think. And it just felt really good to reconnect with Tatjana and feel some camaraderie in the face of the challenges that are before us. One of the things that we discussed today is our teacher training programs that we're both doing. Tatjana's been doing hers. I'm starting one in January. And we compare notes. We talk about how we're structuring them and what we've been learning about doing stuff online and how much needs to be online and how much needs to be offline and a whole bunch of stuff. So very great to have this chance to talk to Tatjana, and I'm really glad to be sharing it with you all today. Speaking of my teacher training starting in January, I am doing another round of info sessions on Monday, December 6th. If after listening today, you've got more questions, or even if you've just got an opinion, even if you weren't really necessarily going to do my training, but you just wanted to show up and talk about teacher training and discuss what you think teacher training ought to look like, or even just what you think the process of learning and teaching yoga is about, you would be very welcome to come to the meeting and hang out. I'm just interested in having a conversation about this stuff. So I've set up some time. You can go to jbrownyoga.com/training. The information about the info sessions, like the time and the Zoom link and everything is there. Feel welcome to come. There is also a button there to fill out a 3-question application. And if you don't mind filling that out, it's just helpful for me to know who you are. And I can send you some more information about the training if you're interested. In any case, I am really looking at this year-long program as an opportunity for me to make sense of a lot of different things and share and practice in a way that I haven't had an opportunity to in some time. So if you've been listening and you're interested to embark on some yoga study over the next year and you want some disciplinary tools and some structures and other people to go off in it, you can go to jbrownyoga.com/training and maybe come to an info session on December 6th. And other than that, I have not planned in-person events. I don't know. I had a gut feeling to just hold off a little bit. Remember, I mentioned that I was just going to give myself a little bit of time, and sure enough, anybody who had stuff planned over the next couple months, if you look at what's happened in the news over the last couple days, it makes you really question whether... It's unbelievable to me that I'm sitting here and what was about to come out of my mouth was, everything is still so up in the air. And if you've been listening to this show for the last few years, I've been saying that for years now. For years, I've been saying everything is still so up in the air. No one knows really what to do. That's crazy. It's crazy that we have been living in a state of that kind of uncertainty. It's not that we're not always existing in uncertainty, but the idea that it feels tenuous to try to plan an in-person event for 2 to 3 months from now because it feels like we're in that same position we were in back in 2020 where there's a 50-50 chance whether or not we're actually going to be able to do it or not or something. It seems crazy. I will say this. What I have been observing and hearing from people is that the good news is only seemingly happening on like local levels. A few weeks back, I was asking for people to send me W's, wins. Remember, I was like, send me your wins. And I got some in the mail. I don't think I read any of those. Maybe I should pull them out and we should give ourselves that kind of reinforcement. But what I observed is that the good news for people is all happening in very micro kind of local ways within their family or like within a relationship or within their neighborhood. If you like zoom the lens out too wide, it just starts to feel horrible. So maybe that's it. Maybe for at least now, the focus does need to be local like that. In any case, what are we going to do? The best we can, I suppose, is all we can do. Most importantly, we can keep looking to find avenues for connection and learning. That's why I am so very grateful to everyone out there who is a podcast premium subscriber. You know, one of the reasons that I've been able to keep this show going for as long as I have is because we set up a podcast premium a few years ago. We did that as a plan to replace sponsors and ads on the show. If you listen back to the old episodes, there's lots of ads and sponsors from the early days. Like a lot of podcasters, I went that route at the beginning, but as I've discussed before, it has all kinds of problems. And in certain ways, it did ultimately affect the content of the show, which I didn't like. So we set up the podcast premium as a way for people to support the show. However, we also set it up as a service. The archives of the show, which is pretty extensive at this point, is accessed through a premium subscription. So let me just shout out two of our very long-time supporters today, Ava Baumgartner and Stuart Usner. What's up, Stuart and Ava? Thank you so much. We really appreciate both of you and everyone else out there who is supporting the show through becoming a podcast premium subscriber. It's choose your rate, canceled anytime. Also, we always want to mention that if you're someone who's listening and you really, really want to listen to those old episodes and you don't have any money, all you have to do is email us and we will give you a free account without question. But for anyone who is in a position to give even just a little something, it's pretty crucial to the show's existence, and we are profoundly grateful to all of you. Thank you. To learn more about becoming a podcast premium subscriber or find out about any of my other stuff, the training I was mentioning, or my ongoing live stream classes and weekly teacher meetings, everything I'm doing can be found at jbrownyoga.com. All right, y'all. I think that will be it for now. I will touch base with you on the other side. But let's go ahead and get to this. Let's listen to this conversation that I had with Tatjana Mesar. Hello?
Hello.
Tatjana.
Hey, Jay.
Oh my gosh, here we are.
Yes, can you imagine? I'm at the same place where we had our last conversation in my living room, except that you're somewhere else.
But you know, as soon as I heard your voice, that's exactly where I went to in my mind.
Yeah, great.
And there we are. We're sitting there still.
Yeah.
Wow.
It does feel like a past life, that previous conversation.
I know. And I was just like thinking about it a few minutes just now before we jumped on this call together. And I was thinking about that was January 2020.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And it was right. I had that self-managed tour that I had planned. And Zen Yoga Berlin was my third stop on the tour. And it was the last stop in January. And I had one more the first weekend of February in New Mexico, and then the world closed down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
And in the meantime, my studio closed down and so many things happened.
So Zen Yoga Berlin did not make it.
Well, actually, it was in the planning. I already decided to close it. The timing was perfect. My lease ended just April 1st, 2020.
Yes, you and I had a conversation about leases. And I remember just a few weeks back, maybe, or a month or two, I can't remember exactly when it went. Time has gotten blurry. But I read an article that was specifically about self-employed people in Berlin and landlords. And I remember us walking around and you telling me about how, oh yeah, Germany has better social programs, but if you're self-employed, you don't get the same health insurance and all that stuff. And I thought of you. I was like, oh, right. It's not all roses over there either.
It's not all roses, but Germany did step up the government to help freelancers at the beginning.
They did.
Least. Yeah, they did. That was helpful, psychologically helpful. So, yeah.
But so I don't even know where to start. As I said, time's been such a blur. I want to catch up with you, but I want to also just say, I know I've said this to you privately, but I kind of want to say it publicly too, that, you know, I was kind of going through it when I was there, when I got there, and you were so helpful to me just because you were a really steady, clear, serious person. And it was very helpful meeting you and having that time. So it's when I got your email, I was so happy to be back in touch with you. So thanks for reaching back out again.
You're welcome. And yeah, it was good to have you here as a guest. I think it was a nice encounter, like two people of the same generation. It's good to, you know, it's good to meet someone who survived in this business. And to feel like it's possible. Yeah.
It's true. I get the same kind of I don't know, reinforcement and like inspiration when I meet somebody who's managed to hold it down over the years, you know?
Exactly.
All right. Well, the other thing that I remember us talking about while I was there was online stuff, because I had already been online, and I actually streamed one of my practice sessions from my workshop, if I recall.
Exactly. I remember. And, you know, that was just at the time when I was thinking about it, but I was shy. I thought like, no, it's complicated and technology. And then you spend half an hour explaining the basics and actually just giving me permission or encouraging me to go and do it. And again, that was the perfect timing, because then when the lockdown started, I was ready and I wasn't afraid. I just switched, and I'm online ever since.
I'm so glad to hear that. And you know, it's reinforcing too, because, and I want to give shout out. I always have to give some credit to my friend and partner, Josh Citron, because he was the one who made me do it. And so I was spouting the stuff that he said to me, to you back then. And that was literally right before everybody had to do it, you know?
And now I'm doing it to my trainees in my teacher training. I'm pushing, like giving a gentle push to, you know, start immediately during the training.
Well, you know, maybe that's something we can get to, because I'm starting a teacher training in 2022. And it's the first teacher training I've done outside of one-to-one mentorships in like the last 4 or 5 years, because I kind of swore them off at some point. And I remember you and me having conversations about yoga education and what we thought was important and how we thought it needed to happen, and how we were kind of working against sort of like the hours thing. So we can get to that, because I kind of want to touch base with you on what you've done in terms of doing training online. So we can get to that too. I guess first though, I want to find out what happened after I left. So after I left, you had a little bit more time on your lease, but then the pandemic happened. And so you just let your lease go and jumped online and started doing online classes. You had plenty of space in your apartment. Were you just doing from your apartment?
Exactly. That's so good in Berlin. We have enough space to, you know, work from home, and that it doesn't feel cramped. So I did that. And I still had some month or so of my lease in the studio. So I did a lot of pre-recorded materials in the studio. And I used that time to, you know, go in there with the cameraman, who's also a friend. And we worked intensively. I think I got into some kind of, it was kind of anxiety of overworking in the first few months of like, I have to get this together because who knows how I'm going to survive. So I really did a huge amount of job at the beginning of the lockdown.
And what I would say is I remember like the vibe of your studio, and you were like, it was right connected with like a dojo, like and it had like a very serious vibe. And I know that you had been doing training there for some time. So I imagine you had it all in you, just had to turn the camera on and get out of yourself a little bit, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I had all, the content was there, and I knew how to deliver it. And at the beginning, talking to camera was awkward because there's no people. But then I used some really silly tricks. I put some stuffed animals that I have in the house behind the camera.
That's great.
To talk to them, to like, okay, I'm talking now to you. And then later on, it's just, I relaxed in front of the camera.
Yeah, you know, I mentioned, we'll talk about it more later. I'm producing some videos like you're talking about right now, because I do think online training sort of want to involve like a mix, right? Of like pre-recorded stuff and then live stuff. So I am pre-recording some stuff too. And it does mean literally sitting on a stool right in front of a camera. And I think I've turned it into sort of this kind of meditation or something, where I look into the lens and I imagine that I'm talking to someone like my best friend, or like somebody I really care about, you know? And I talk like that. It's a little thing you got to do though. You got, like I said, you got to get out of yourself and get away from that, oh my God, I'm in front of a camera thing.
Yeah, I mean, teaching yoga is in any case so much multitasking. You have to think what you're going to say. You have to demonstrate. You observe people if you're in the room. You check in with yourself. And now there's this multitasking of you pretending you're in front of the people. There's camera. You have to think about the tech. It's like another level of
I know, and I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, all the talk was Zoom tricks and make sure everybody mutes, and like everybody had to like figure it out. But now everybody knows how to do it, and actually, that's a little scary how ingrained it's become at this point.
I'm sure that it will stay there forever at certain levels. Some people like to practice from home and don't want to look for a parking place and drive through city to go to an actual studio. And many studios closed. So,
Right. So what happened in terms of Berlin? Was it the same as like everywhere else where all the shutdowns and then people you can't keep a lease going if you can't keep classes going?
Quite a few places closed. So I wasn't not in Berlin all the time. I actually took a turn after this first few months of overworking, and then I kind of stopped and looked into what's possible and decided to go to the Buddhist center in Croatia and spend winter basically in nature in the middle of nowhere, which was the best thing
you mentioned that place, I think, when we talked last time, and like the Croatia yoga connection. I remember that. So you went back and retreated.
Yeah, exactly. Because I thought, like, if I have to be in isolation, then let me be the one I've chosen and in the nature. And I think it was the best thing I could have done, because I was away from the madness and in a beautiful setting with good people. Yeah, it was good.
How long were you there?
5-6 months throughout the winter.
Good move, Tatjana.
It's making the best out of the circumstances.
Yeah. But you were able to keep your place in Berlin.
Yeah. I found a person who came in, a musician and composer, so he stayed at my place while I was in Croatia.
Nice.
And that turned out really nice. Yeah.
Nice.
And now coming back, yes, many studios have closed, and some big ones like Jivamukti closed one location in Berlin, and another big one studio. A lot of smaller ones also are kind of maybe hanging on or closing. So I don't think it's such a major shift like in what I have a feeling happened in the United States with so many brick and mortar studios closing, but you can feel it here too. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because there certainly are still studios out there, but a lot of them didn't make it for sure. And so now you're back in Berlin, but were you doing classes while you were in Croatia?
Online. I was teaching online. And, it opened new possibilities. Some of my students who were not in Berlin anymore, but moved somewhere else, started to practice with me from different places in the world. And suddenly it really became people from all over the world practicing with me. From Rwanda, from the States, from Poland, Switzerland. And that was really sweet also. And they still are. I still have people now online practicing, and I think I'll keep this model because it's really nice to be kind of lightweight.
Just to share with you, I'm almost hesitating, like, do I share this with everybody too? But yes, of course, we're open book here. I would say that going forward, as you said, it's not going to stop. There's no more, we're not going to just stop. I guess some people I know have I don't want to do online classes, but to me, if you are someone who's trying to make your way forward as a teacher, you have to have both. And I'm going to go so far as to say that now I kind of think of it as, they keep calling them hybrid classes, but I don't think that's a very accurate way to look at it, because it's only a hybrid class from your perspective, like from the teacher or the yoga center perspective. Like from the student perspective, you can't be online and in person at the same time. You're choosing one or the other. So really, it is just the same class that can be attended in two different ways. So for me, I no longer even think of it as a hybrid class. These are the classes that I teach, and you can come in person or you can do it online.
Yeah, great. This is how it is now. Yeah, without apologizing, sort of.
Yeah, no apologies. And, you know, it's 2 revenue streams for every class, honestly. Yeah. And I don't know, are you doing subscriptions?
Yeah, I did the whole membership part on my website. I went
to do that. You got everybody listening. This is free information. Doing like drop-in rates for online classes, bad idea.
Bad idea, and so many emailing and for one.
See, you just went right there, Tatjana. That's why I like you so much, because you really are. You got it. See, because a lot of people don't think about it. They're like, what difference does it make? People are paying me $14 a class or whatever they're doing. But you said it. It's actually about admin, like having to deal with registering people into classes, like all that stuff we did. I don't know what you did at your center, but I still have these boxes in my attic of sign-in sheets of people signing into classes. Away.
I had the cleansing ritual of throwing like thousands and thousands of sign-in. It was a good feeling. Like,
I'm going through my attic right now because it's like the last part of the house that I got to get in order, because it took us 5 years to do the house, but I'm in the attic now, and I have these sign-in sheets, and there was no need to even do them. They were useless. Why did we need to do that? It didn't matter.
I think it was some kind of initiation, like, okay, sign up, and then people take it seriously. I don't know. I needed them maybe also to mark the beginning and to remember people's names. That's why I was really bad at remembering
that, because you were learning people's names. But I think that ultimately it just became like a convention, like this is the way you do it. But it was unnecessary, a lot of unnecessary admin time.
Exactly.
And if you're a yoga center owner, you know that because you run it yourself.
So
and you
many things you're doing. Yeah, that's
all this stupid shit.
Now automation is the holy grail.
And we're talking over each other a lot, but I hope you don't mind. But that is the point, that if you're going to have regular classes every week, then if you start a subscription, people have a subscription to your classes, however many they are a month, for whatever price you deem fair. And then it's recurring. You don't have to do any admin.
Exactly.
And they can cancel at any time or whatever, and it becomes more sustainable because there is a little bit, I find, a little bit of like a Patreon effect. Like if your monthly price is low enough, sometimes even if people aren't using it that much, they still keep it.
Yeah, exactly. And you can lower the price because you don't have that much work with all the admin stuff, and you can actually have more time to do other things. Yeah.
Exactly. Are you hearing this, everybody? Are you hearing this? This is knowledge. I only say that because it has been hard to kind of navigate. And that one thing of understanding that there's a difference between the way like billing happens for online classes and in person. Right now, what I'm doing is online classes are all subscription based, and in person, I just have a cigar box with cash in it.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
People can Venmo me if they want or whatever. You know what I mean? But like, no credit card processing and no registration, no sign in. Just come. And
old fashioned. It's interesting how we're coming back to the old ways. Like,
and nobody's stealing from me,
Yeah, and that's great.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think that really is a distinction in my mind between in person and online. And online is subscriptions, and in person is a drop in rate. Like no memberships for in person classes. Especially right now, because you don't have a lease. Because who wants to have a lease right now? Because the way the world is.
Exactly. Well, my system is that I teach only online, and then I organize these retreats. I had my first retreat in Croatia this summer because I was thinking Croatia is amazing. It's a dramatically beautiful country, and I want to bring people there and spend 4 or 5 days practicing in nature and diving in person with people. So I think this will be my system of regular classes online, and then getting people to come to some really nice locations and to practice together. where nature does half of the work, because if you're somewhere where there's silence and true darkness, I don't need to work that much. Also, the nature is doing the teaching.
It's so interesting you say that, because I recently had this guy on my show named Joshua Schrein, and if you haven't heard him, I highly recommend listening to his podcast. But I have been taking to heart some of the things that he said, and my personal practice these days has just been going into the forest and listening to the sounds. If I just listen to the sounds, like there's a layer of birds, there's a layer of insects, there's a layer of wind in the trees, and then wind in my ears. It almost becomes a psychedelic experience.
I was last year at this time of the year, I was in Buddhist Center already, and it's surrounded with woods. And at this time of the year, there's this specific, unique sound of leaves falling, and they fall in such big numbers that it's constant, like really like a rain of leaves that I've never heard anywhere else. This year I was talking to my teacher, one of my teachers who is there, and I said, please record this sound. We need to have this. We can kind of like offer it as a meditation of just listening to the sound of the forest for those who cannot come, because it's really something that we need, and that's unique. And me as a musician, and you're a musician as well, there's so much to gain from opening ourselves to what is in the surrounding, either auditory or also visually. So I'm going into the forest. We don't need walls and rooms and studios.
See? So you're not planning to open another Zen Yoga Berlin, huh? You're not looking to see if that old space of yours is still free, huh?
Oh, no, I haven't even been there. I need some time to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that for me has been a little bit of the switch in my mind too, that it really isn't about spaces anymore. That the space almost doesn't matter. As I was discussing with you when I was starting that tour, like I just get an Airbnb and move the coffee table in the living room and have 9 mats out. Like it doesn't matter. We don't need these spa environments if what we're after is yoga inquiry.
And especially if what you're after is, or what I'm after is a smaller groups, not groups of 50 people where I cannot remember no one's names, but I like to work in groups of 15, maximum 20 people. 15 are my favorite number. I can remember everyone's faces, people interact with each other, and for that you don't need big spaces, you don't need much, and you're much more mobile.
Yeah, I've absolutely capped my training at 20 people because now, even to the earlier point, that's the number of people I can see at once on a Zoom call. Anything more than 20, and you have to do that thing where you have to flip over and you can't see everybody, and forget it. Then that's the same as having 50 people and you can't remember their names,
Yeah, I kept mine to 15, and somehow I like that number.
Yeah, no, it's a good number, because I've often thought of that number as kind of a cutoff point in a certain way. Like beyond 15, it actually becomes a very different experience for me as a teacher. I can pay attention to a large degree, especially if I know a lot of the people in the room when it's 15. But at a certain point, there's always somebody that I can't even be paying any attention to or whatever.
Exactly, and people can get lost in the crowd, and then if the group is too big, then they also start grouping in smaller groups, and all these group dynamics. So 15 is just perfect, 12 to 15.
All right, so okay, that makes so much sense. And to your earlier point about how like nature does a lot of the work for you, that is something I've been thinking more and more about, even in terms of practice, that you and me both, if I remember, we're both analytical types. I remember us having some pretty lengthy conversations about yoga philosophy and stuff. And I've been I mentioned, preparing and working on this teacher training and really trying to identify like what's the most effective way to go about it. In this new context that we're all practicing and working together in. And I've been really feeling like, to your point about nature, that a lot of what I think needs to happen is along those lines, is along the lines of people singing and dancing more than like reading texts necessarily. And so I guess I'm not even sure where I'm going with this, in that I've been trying to balance that out. Like some of the pre-recorded materials can be like more intellectual thinking about things. But in the live calls, I don't want to be lecturing. Because I don't think people hear it the same. That when you're like if you've been in a Zoom call, I've been in Zoom calls where like a teacher's giving a lecture and we're all listening. And then I've been in Zoom calls where we're just all talking and the teacher didn't even come with anything prepared. And the latter is so much more vibrant.
Because people need interaction. I mean, if you're all the time online, where's the place where we chat with each other? And I came to realize that people really like the breakout rooms and to talk between themselves on a certain topic, to discuss, to find things together. They open up easier than in a group of 15 people. Then mostly it's me talking and they're listening.
So you're using the breakout rooms. I was just talking with someone about that the other day. Even just with 15 people. Like I always thought that would be for like larger groups.
No, a group of 3 or 4, they discuss a certain topic or have a little task. People get to know each other. And really, I think, and this is the feedback I'm getting, there is a sense of community. People feel connected. And they're everywhere around the world. I have now a woman from Iran attending the training, which is amazing, I think, because she wouldn't be able to travel anywhere outside of Iran. And she's connecting with people from Switzerland and Germany, and they're discussing things. So, and feeling, I also have a private group, kind of like non-formal, and I moved away from Facebook to this Mighty Networks, another type of no commercial, no algorithm.
Yeah, but you see, I don't like that. We could talk about, you use Mighty Networks. Do you like it? I've looked at it.
I didn't spend much time researching everything that's out there. I like it because there's nothing else except that. We just go there and...
Or like a Facebook group. A lot of people are like using that stuff instead of Facebook groups.
No, I didn't want to stay on Facebook because then some people told me, I'm on Facebook only because of you. I'm like, no!
See, but that's why I don't like Facebook groups too, because if people don't want to be on there, you make them have to be on there.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that, so I moved to.
So the idea, but if they're having these breakout rooms and they're getting to know each other that way, what are they using the Mighty Networks for? Is that like so they can go on and talk to each other at other times?
Yeah, that, and I drop a link of something that we discussed, or after online class, I drop recordings or links or something to refer to what I was saying. So it's more not formal, and only if you want to. But it is a place where kind of like where you can meet others and ask questions. And sometimes it's just tech questions. Stuff also that one question that I answer is then visible for everyone. And I have less emails to answer because people usually ask similar questions. So it was my way to also optimize my time.
Okay, I mean, that's a good case for it. I think I've been praising this guy, Joshua Stride, and he uses it. And the experience my friend Josh has had with it hasn't been so good that like sometimes he actually didn't get the link. Like you got to get the phone app to use it or whatever. And then he ended up having to send out an email to everybody anyways, making sure that they got the link.
Okay, no, I don't use Mighty Networks for live calls. I do that on Zoom, but just for like a place for discussion, like a group to post. But
like
not, I don't use,
or whatever,
Yeah. I don't use it for anything else. I have this free option, and that's it. Just to move away from Facebook and algorithms.
And do your people in your groups use it?
Yeah, they do. And I also, when they have practice teach sessions, so they have to record like 15 minutes standing sequence or this, like their first attempts to teaching, they post it in the group so everyone can see. And it's they're learning how to show themselves in the group that's closed and safe, but still it's first steps toward being on camera and talking, which is the way I'm giving them that gentle push I mentioned at the beginning.
Interesting. And I'm curious about that because I would imagine some people want to do that and some people don't. Is it a requirement? Do you have to film yourself teaching classes?
At certain level, yes. So for the mentoring sessions, yes. And I say that up front. So if you're not comfortable with that, you won't join that type of a program.
Right.
And in the foundational training we have 40% of the training is in person. So now I'm in Berlin and we're meeting in the studio. They can teach, if they can come to Berlin, they can teach in person. But for those people who cannot, for somewhere else, for instance, in Iran, then they submit it as a recording. And it's closed group, it's not visible anywhere. So they can also delete it afterwards, but it's a way. I mean, if someone is really would prefer to just show it to me, I would also be open to that.
Right.
I don't have a problem.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so how much of what you're offering is like pre-recorded and how much of it is live talking sessions with breakout rooms?
So 60% of material is online. And out of that 60%, I would say most of it is pre-recorded sessions, and then we have live calls once per month after they receive a certain batch of videos. They have 1 week to go through the materials, which I also find really useful. People retain much more when they have time to actually go through sessions, not all in one weekend. And then we meet for a live call, which refers to what they've seen. They can ask questions. We practice some stuff from the materials. They have discussions, and then there are weekly classes. I have a master class every Wednesday where we practice and talk. We have little discussions. So it's kind of mix of pre-recorded sessions and online live sessions. 60% of the training, and then 40% is in person in Berlin. And for those who cannot attend in person, they can then watch it on Zoom. And Zoom is not recorded, it's just happening. They put a camera in the room and they kind of participate online.
See, we've landed in much the same place. And I totally agree in terms of like more time. When I was doing like a more conventional 200-hour training back when I had my center, I had it such that I had scheduled meetings for 4 months and people who wanted to complete, because only about 30% of the people who did my training actually completed and got a certificate, because after those scheduled meetings, you had to do a bunch of stuff on your own. And if somebody wanted to really make it happen, they could make it happen 4 to 6 months. They could complete. I had like a few people who had like time crunches and wanted to do it and made it happen. But even at that, it felt compressed. And I had done other types of like 2-week intensive, 50-hour modules, 100-hour modules where you do those crazy 8-hour days or whatever. And at a certain point, nothing's getting retained, It's just like filling the hours. So now I was originally going to do kind of like these almost like hour-long videos like every week. And now I've even made them like down to like maybe like 25-minute packets.
That's actually a good time, 20 minutes packet, then a little break. I even, in my online platform, I say, okay, now take a cup of tea, stretch, and come back for another 20 minutes.
Yeah, to watch something, because that's also to something I was talking about earlier, where especially if what we're doing in our practice is about like embodiment and stuff, the screens are sometimes counterproductive. Not always. It's not like you can't do good practice online. We both know you can, but it's almost like I don't want to have to, in the same way you don't want to have to make someone go on Facebook. If you are hearing this message, then you're listening to the free version of J. Brown Yoga Talks. To hear the rest of our conversation, please subscribe to Podcast Premium at jbrownyoga.com/premium.